Well, hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Monterey Bay Aquarium here live all across the internet. If my screens are correct, we should be live currently on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitch, and I think that's it. Wherever else you folks happen to be sharing this particular video, thank you so much for joining in. We've got quite a few folks there over on YouTube that I can see. Facebook crew is coming in as well, and we also have our friends over there on Twitch. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. It has been a little bit since we have been live with all of you because we have been incredibly busy getting ready for this truly monumental moment that is going to be coming up in just about 1 month. We are so close to revealing Into the Deep, Exploring Our Undiscovered Ocean, the latest exhibition here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. And joining us today, outside of my amazing coworker, my colleague, my buddy, my pal, across the screen that way, we got Emily, who's going to be monitoring the chat. Hey, Emily, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Hey, Pat. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us this afternoon.
It's so good to see you all again, and joining us today to talk about this new exhibition that we are really getting ready right now. We've got a lot of folks running around making sure that everything looks perfect for all of you coming up here in 1 month. We have Director of Husbandry Operations above us in the porthole there. We've got Paul Clarkson. Hey, Paul, how are you doing today?
Hey, Patrick. Hey, Emily. I am fantastic. Fantastic, I suppose I'm supposed to say.
That's a
Yes.
deep cut to all of our puns that we have. And
Yes.
that is appropriate because we're here to talk a little bit more about this Into the Deep exhibition. All of our friends that are over on Discord have been throwing in a whole bunch of questions. We have a lot of people scouring the internet trying to figure out little clues as to what might be here in the exhibit. So we're really excited to be able to talk to you here today. But before we get started, quick little bit of technical difficulty on this side. Talk a little bit, Emily, maybe throw some questions over there to Paul that we can get to. We'll talk about that bloody belly comb jelly here real quick. I just got to fix something that broke. 1 second.
Yeah, of course. No worries there. All right. Well, we're just going to go ahead and dive right into it. We had almost 60 questions submitted over on Discord, so I don't think that we're going to get to all of those. We got more questions coming in over on Twitch and YouTube and Facebook right now. So thank you to everyone who are sending in those questions. I'm going to start with one that I've seen in every single channel, and it's probably the number one question that we get about the exhibit. How do we cope with bringing these animals from the deep sea that live in this really what we would consider an inhospitable environment? Of course, we know that it is full with biodiversity and life down there, but these animals are adapted to an environment that's not the same as up here at the surface. A lot of people are curious about, what do we do about the pressure inside of the exhibits? Is that something that we can control?
Yeah, you're right. That is like question number one at all times, right? What about the pressure? Well, the short and sweet answer to that is that we don't deal with it. Yes, deep sea habitats are under just what we would call soul-crushing pressure down there, and animals are adapted to live in those pressures. However, many of them adapt just quite fine to surface pressures as well. Some do not, some do. The challenge with pressurizing things in an aquarium is that really the technology is still just not there. In order to pressurize a volume of seawater and to keep an animal alive inside of it, it's very, very difficult at this point to do. The scaling is very challenging. The expense is very challenging, and it results in a display that's not particularly interesting for a visitor, and very, very small windows and whatnot. So instead, we've worked with animals that we know can adapt well to surface pressures, and there's some techniques that we can use to move that along a little bit. For animals that don't seem to react well to pressure change, those animals will be bringing to you through other multimedia experiences rather than live and in the real.
That's excellent. Thank you so much for tackling that just then. From what I can tell from the chat, it looks like the audio issue has been wrapped up. I had to redo a source. You always get to find things out last minute here when you're doing things that are kind of technologically advanced. And I know that there's quite a few different curveballs that are likely going to be thrown your way, Paul, and have already been thrown your way in terms of this type of exhibitry. And you were just mentioning some of the animals that can do fine under surface pressure, but there's a lot of things that we're going to be discovering right now. I want to pull up that bloody belly comb jelly. If you could just talk a little bit about what that experience has been like, knowing that we have a lot of practice at the aquarium working with comb jellies generally from our incredible comb jelly team, then maybe if you could describe one curveball that you can already describe of what it's like to try to take care of these deeper sea animals. I imagine it's a little bit more complex than just fixing a scene in your streaming software, but could you tell us a little bit about this incredible, and I'm about to put this up, this is I mean, we've been sitting on these images for almost 6 years now, it feels like. Paul, can you tell us about this bloody belly comb jelly and then maybe some of the challenges there?
Yeah, I think the bloody belly is this great example of kind of how long it really sometimes takes us to bring an animal to display. So, and I would argue that this is like a 30 years old story at this point,
Wow,
right?
okay.
And that, we've been keeping jellies here for decades, and certainly have been keeping comb jellies, surface dwelling comb jellies here for most of that time. But we have only relatively recently figured out how to culture these things, how to breed them here at the aquarium in their full life cycle. So that alone took us decades to kind of crack that nut. Now that nut is cracked, our jelly team is making comb jellies like a factory here, and all of that work that went on for decades prior has really enabled us now to care for this deep sea comb jelly, the bloody belly. But one of the challenges we continued to face with this species is that it's one that is found in the oxygen minimum zone out here in the bay. So this layer of seawater out in our bay that is almost entirely devoid of oxygen, which is really counterintuitive when you think about animals. I mean, animals, even those in the ocean, take up oxygen just like we do, except a lot of these critters that are in this oxygen minimum zone. So we had to develop a technique by which we could actually pull oxygen out of seawater, which again is completely opposite of what we're usually trying to do around here. But once we figured that out, we were able to recreate essentially the oxygen minimum zone. And then our opportunity to keep an animal like this was completely opened up.
Wow. And I mean, what an absolutely astounding animal. Just I have all three of us picture in picture now below it. Comb jellies and just jellies in general, I feel like they really embody what it's like to be an aquatic animal. It's mostly water, but it's like water that can know itself. And a lot of people on the jelly team I know have worked with comb jellies or other animals that are loosely organized water generally. So just how fragile they can be. One of the things I'm sure, Emily, that the folks are noticing is just the color, how incredibly brilliant this animal is. And we're not going to talk a ton about I think the natural history of a lot of these organisms. Now we have a lot of different streams that we're going to be doing a lot of things to cover, but generally speaking, Emily, are there questions out there about like why would be this color? Then Paul, if you felt like describing some of the really interesting adaptations that you're noticing with these animals already in your work with them. Emily, what do the folks want to know out there?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So we've gotten some kind of general questions about the biology of the animals down in the deep sea. Paul, this is actually kind of a fun one here. We had someone curious about what are the biggest animals that we are going to be displaying, as well as some of the smallest animals that we're going to be displaying, and what are the challenges with each of those? How are we keeping them happy inside of an aquarium?
See, how can I say this without being too spoilery, I suppose. One of the animals that we just put on display yesterday, I'll say, stretched out to over 6.5 feet long.
Oh,
so
we are allowed to talk about the crab. This is not it, but this is an example. What can you tell us about this incredible animal that I have behind you right now?
I'm waiting. Yeah. That's a little one too,
It's a
Patrick.
little
That's
one.
just
I know
the
that we're
teeth
Just
not.
a
one.
little guy.
We're teasing. We're teasing. It's a little taste.
So this is the Japanese spider crab, sometimes called the giant Japanese spider crab, because it is giant. It is certainly the longest crab on the planet. These are found in deep sea habitats off the coast of Japan and Taiwan. Not unusual, entirely unusual to see them on displays in public aquariums because they are done around the world. What is unusual is to see the really big ones. This species, claw to claw, and I'm probably going outside my porthole here, but
It's all good. The pressure will keep things contained. Yeah.
thank you. So my hands are outside my porthole here, but claw tip to claw tip, they can get like 12 feet long across, which is absurd for crab, of course. And so, yes, we put one in yesterday that was not even stretched out all the way, and it reached to the very top of the 6.5 foot tall tank that it was in as it was exploring. So that was pretty spectacular. So that's the big, right? And then, we're going to be talking about animals in this exhibition that are everything down to nearly microscopic. And I think that's what's so spectacular about the deep. It's got everything from the smallest to the biggest, and we'll be talking about all of those stories. So I don't know, a smallest, a critter that I like. I know this might be a little bit spoilery, but a balloon worm.
Whoa, the balloon worm.
They're pretty small.
The one image I didn't happen
You
to
don't
download.
have.
Oh, did I throw that out
It's
at you?
all good.
Right, well.
Hey, no, people are good. Actually, you know what? That could be a fun little game. We'll reveal that next time. How about all of you folks out there who are currently watching? If you wanted to draw us what you think a balloon worm looks like without Googling it, and if you wanted to head over to our Discord or send us a DM or just tweet at us, whatever you feel like doing, draw a balloon worm, whatever you think that looks like, and we'll reveal that on the next stream. That's a good impromptu.
Well, you know what,
game.
Patrick? I don't
Yeah.
even think people can cheat because I think we had to create that common name for the species.
Right on.
Right?
Oh, that's
Right?
even better. All right. So
Okay.
if any of you out there think that you can figure out what a deep sea worm that would be called a balloon worm looks like, send us your submissions. I think that'll be super fun.
Yeah, and that's an example of a number of species that we had to give a common name to because these things are so poorly understood that lots of them only have scientific names. There are some in the exhibition that don't even have their own scientific names yet.
That's
Yeah.
I love that.
So
We're
cool.
we're right there at the edge of discovery. Emily, what can you
Yes.
tell us about what the folks are wondering out there?
We've got a lot of questions about this that you mentioned in your last answer, Paul, about one of the biggest challenges that we're having keeping these animals. A lot of them are from oxygen minimum zones. Can you explain what oxygen minimum zones are? Do we only find them here in Monterey? Do we find them worldwide? People are curious about why those areas are so special.
They are found around the globe and are associated with deep sea habitats in many oceans. They move around a little bit, right? So they expand and contract and kind of change location based upon things going on out in the ocean. But essentially what's going on is one, due to circulation patterns, sometimes water is not getting kind of evenly distributed. And two, there's a lot of biological activity consuming oxygen in those areas as carbon is raining down from the surface above and decaying and gobbling up oxygen and whatnot. You get these just, again, very depleted oxygen areas that you would think nothing would be alive in, and yet they're really rich with life that's adapted to live there.
Paul, what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to transition you into a scene. You're on the lower side, and now we're in this bright red exhibit space. You're talking about that oxygen minimum zone. You're talking about things that we have to physically control around the water. One of the things that we saw with the bloody belly comb jelly is that it's a red animal. And for those of you who may be unfamiliar, the reason that a lot of animals in the deep sea tend to be red is that red is a wavelength of light that is absorbed by the ocean. So the further down you go, there's almost no more red light, and that means that you're going to appear black with all of the other light around you, and that works out really great if there's a lot of darkness. So right now on screen, we've got this red tinted exhibit space in the back. Can you tell us a little bit about not only that, we were talking about that oxygen, we have to do a lot of work on the water, but what the lighting is we might expect to be here? Because I know that that's something a lot of people think, well, it's dark, it's deep. What is going on there as far as keeping some of these animals comfortable behind the scenes? And we have this red holding space.
Yeah, this is a super spy photo here too, of back behind the scenes in the R&D area. I'll just this space that you're seeing right here is just really great. It's one of our areas that we've been working in for years that have allowed us both to do R&D on animal husbandry and also on the life support and all of this oxygen minimum stuff in the same place. So the lighting piece is that, well, of course, we want to transport you to the deep when you're here. So as you walk into this exhibition, you're going to, of course, feel like you're deep. And to go along with that, it's dark and dim there. As we've worked with a lot of the animals from this area, we've realized that some of them either seem not to notice light at all, or can adapt to low levels of light that we put on them, or that are really, really highly sensitive to any light whatsoever. And of course, that has steered us as to what species that we're going to be able to bring to display. But many of them tolerate low levels of light fairly well, as long as we're getting all of the other parameters correct: temperature and water current and food and oxygen levels and pH and all that stuff. So you've got to have all the ingredients right on the money. But this space is an example of where, as we first bring animals into the aquarium, we try to very slowly acclimate them to surface life. And so that might happen in a room like this. So if you're an aquarist working in this space, you're walking around in almost darkness, lots of red headlamps that folks are walking around into. They look like, miners. Looking for biological gold, I guess.
That's really fascinating. That idea of bringing the animal up to surface lighting. We talk about bringing things up to surface pressure. I'll show a quick photo of some rockfish. The folks who are asking about pressure, we're not replicating that, but we do have animals that we have done work with that do live under pressure. We happen to have this photo. I just want to shout out Joe Welsh right now is up on screen there, Paul. So next to you there is that rockfish recompression chamber for those animals that do have those air pockets. So if you have heard that story at the aquarium in the past of us mentioning releasing that pressure, so acclimating up to surface light is more what we're doing right now with a lot of this exhibit, but there are those techniques there. Do you have anything to add about the rockfish recompression there before we move on?
Well, only that if we did a full-time exhibit of that's kind of what it would look like, right? I mean, it's like a foot size window at most, and that's kind of the apparatus it takes really to compress just a couple of gallons of seawater down to deep pressures.
There we go. All right, now what I want to transition to super quick before we get to an audience question from Emily. One of the things that we haven't, I think, introduced yet, mostly because I was thrown off right at the start by the audio, is how are we able to do this in the world? I don't recall you mentioning the very neat feature that we have out here in our backyard, and we can maybe introduce our colleagues, our research partners and science partners that are helping us get this done. Currently behind all of us, we have a rather interesting look off of the back of the aquarium out into the Monterey Bay. And Paul, you are now located right there in a very special little piece of geology that we have here locally. What can you tell us about the Monterey Submarine Canyon?
Yeah, to those questions you posed, Patrick, like how can we do this and why do we do this? This is a big part of it right here. Okay, so to just kind of give everyone perspective, at the very bottom of our screen, you see that nice green peninsula there. That is the Monterey Peninsula, and then the Monterey Bay to the north, and off the top of the screen would be Santa Cruz across the bay. And what you're looking at is a picture here of if we drained the entire bay full of seawater. And really what's down there is essentially, we compare it a lot to the Grand Canyon. It looks like the Grand Canyon full of water right here in our backyard. So we have one of the most accessible deep sea habitats really on the planet, just miles offshore of our own aquarium and our sister institution in Bari. So if you trace that canyon all the way back up into the shallows in Bari, the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, it sits right there. And their whole raison d'etre is to study the deep sea here in Monterey Bay. And they've got the tools and the expertise and the boats and the ROVs to do it. So through our partnerships with them, we can get access to, again, one of the closest deep sea habitats to the shore, really on the West Coast, if not the planet.
That's wonderful. Yeah. So in case you folks were wondering, how are we able to do this compared to other places that may have thought about it or attempted it? We really are fortunate to have that feature of the Monterey Submarine Canyon, because this not only helps concentrate a lot of that whale activity that you folks might be familiar with in the summer. There's a lot of food along those canyon walls that happens to be in closer to shore. Therefore, we can go see them a little bit easier, sometimes from the back deck. But also it goes down over a mile deep from the canyon rim with a mile of water above. And that's the average depth of the ocean, is around 2.2 miles, give or take. So you get this incredible cross section from kelp forest down into those submarine canyons. Okay, Emily, you have been answering questions in the chat, making sure everybody knows what's going on out there. Is there anything that has popped up that you'd like to mention right now? The transition that I'm going to do after this, I think, is to show some videos that Paul gave us of some experiments that we've done leading up to the exhibit. In particular, one of my favorite photos of aquarist Alicia is about to come up here.
Yes.
But Emily, what did the folks want to know out there?
No, that's perfect. I'm gonna skip one question that I had then until you show that photo of Alicia. And instead, we're gonna ask this one right now, Paul. How are the feeding needs of deep sea exhibits different than some of our other exhibits at the aquarium?
Entirely different and entirely the same. Can I say that?
Okay.
So, well, I mean, what's the same is, of course, whenever we look to care for a new animal, we've got to understand it from the inside and outside, right? The whole what its environment is, its lifestyle, its habitat, what its feeding sources may be, and we need to really understand that to a really deep level before we can properly care for an animal. So we have to do the same thing for deep sea animals and understand all of that. Where it's different is that we just have limited periods of time to observe all of that stuff, where we can go out and observe a rockfish via scuba and kind of understand more about it. It's much more difficult to do that for a sea pig or whatnot. And two, the food sources, as you may have heard us talk about here at the aquarium, even our animal collection eats sustainable seafood, and we can get a lot of that stuff through the seafood industry. Well, since stuff like marine snow drives a lot of the food consumption and production of the deep sea, we've had to get really creative with creating new foods. And to put it simply, it's almost like getting a blender out and putting a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of that, trying to replicate a food source that you might find in the wild. And that's been one of the huge challenges. Marine snow it's essentially decaying matter from the surface that's floating down into the deep at all times. So how do you replicate something like that?
Yeah, and just real quick, a lot of those answers to be revealed in numerous other venues.
Patrick's stopping me from talking now.
No. I only have 3 things on the list here. I'm just like, what? No, exactly. Trying to recreate the food there is definitely
spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
No. We didn't cross into the solution there.
It's fine. Yeah. I will say, just with all the questions that are coming in right now, we're planning on having more live streams like this as we lead up to the exhibit. I know next week we're going to be talking with Team Water Quality. So all these incredible questions coming in about how we're recreating these habitats for these animals specifically. I'm going to save some of those for next week and kind of throw some of these other questions at Paul right now, but we aren't going to try and censor you, Paul, I promise.
No. But
suddenly my audio goes out again.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't know what happened, Paul.
Oh, yeah. Connection difficulties. Yeah. No, so yeah, that just so many different aspects of trying to recreate this environment that is the largest environment on the planet in terms of its volume and scale. We've talked about, you've probably heard that the ocean is 70 something percent of the planet's surface, but if you think of the volume of the ocean, it's, a lot of people will say, 99% of the available real estate for things to live, and then the deep sea is 95% therefore of the available living space. And so the life that we experience with, photosynthesis and everything feeding us, pick our food, whatever, that is one reality on the planet. The rest of it, that sinking of the food, the raising up of the nutrition to start the food web, that upwelling, all of these things that are connected in the ocean are things that we have to try to replicate to be able to show you animals that are maybe not even, rare for the world, but that are never before seen by us because of that disconnect between our two realities. But there are some moments where we get to connect those realities using some very interesting technology that is out there. ROVs, remotely operated vehicles, the ships that the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute has. And so right now, Paul, if I may, I would like to put you picture in picture one more time, and I'm going to throw up this delightful photo of Aquarist Alicia. That is, can you explain why she's so excited, and then let me know when you want me to play the video of what we have going on there, because this is a very excited deep sea biologist photo.
Yeah, when you think aquarium biologist, this is what you think, right?
Yeah.
It's like one of the stories that we're going to tell in this new exhibition is that of whale falls and what happens when a big carcass drops down to the bottom of the deep sea and how that fuels life down there. And one of the really most fascinating kind of mini stories within that bigger story is that of the bone worm, a worm that actually is able to use really like the final bit of nutrition in a giant carcass like this by getting the fats out of the inside of the bones to consume it. And bone worms were not very well known until actually the first species was actually discovered here in Monterey Bay. And now we know that they're all over the world and that bone worms are in pretty much every skeleton you can find in the ocean. So we want to tell this story of this bone worm. The biggest question is, all right, how do you get bone worms? We got to go bone worm fishing, right? So that's what Alicia is planning on doing here. So in this photo, she's got a plate strapped full of cow bones that we got at the local market. We'll talk about which bones work for this and which don't in a minute. And we've got to send that thing out into the deep sea to try to lure bone worms in and then bring them back out. So Patrick, if you want to hit that video now, we can show you how this works. So we use one of Mbari's ROVs, remotely operated vehicles. This is hundreds of meters down in the ocean. Got this giant robot with a claw that we're now dropping this plate full of bones, this platter of dinner for bone worms right on the bottom of the ocean there. The fact that you can do this, hundreds of meters away with a robot is remarkable. So we'll toss that thing out there, let it sit and incubate on the ocean floor for several months, and then we'll go back and get it. So we've got to put a tracker on it. It's like Find My Whalebone phone or what, I don't know. And that we can go back down there and find this thing. And hopefully it hasn't been buried or blown away or something like that. And then we can bring it back up to the ocean. I think there's another video there too, Patrick. Do you have that one?
There is. Yeah, it's up on screen right now. Tell us about these delightful little friends.
So in the first video, you might have seen it in the corner, but I mean, this is within seconds of putting this thing down on the ocean floor. Hagfish come streaming out of the substrate. Now, when you're driving the ROV around here, believe me, you don't see a hagfish typically. It takes seconds once the dinner bell is rung, and these things come out of the ground and start munching on the rest of the meat here.
Oh man, Paul, I hadn't quite fully appreciated the fact of the hagfish being in the mud and then emerging. I thought that maybe they were just kind of swimming around and then would like happen upon that. Okay, no, keep describing it.
Yeah, it's
I'm
the
gonna have
stuff
a
of
harder
nightmares.
time sleeping tonight, as I'm
The
sure
stuff
many
of
of the
nightmares,
folks out here. Yeah,
I'll tell you, the first time when we dropped this thing, I was flabbergasted by how quickly they came to the dinner table.
wow.
I mean, just remarkable. So, but they're helping us out here because they're just going to take all of that flesh off of those bones and remove it, because the bone worms don't want the flesh. They just want the juicy fat in the very middle of the bones. And then once those bones are stripped clear and we sit them down there for 6 months or so, we come back and inevitably it's been colonized by bone worms.
Goodness. I hope the folks up there are, I hope that the folks that are watching are enjoying here. I'm going to put all three of us up with the hagfish in the background. Just a little bit of something for the folks out there. Hagfish are in a group of fish known as Myxiniformes, and that means mucus being. And so they're jawless, so they're incredibly ancient. And Trooper is deciding that's too much hagfish talk already.
No, too much hagfish.
Too much I apologize, Trooper.
Well, you said
Trooper saw the
boneless.
bones.
Okay, that's
which
right.
is just an offense to a dog.
No,
you know?
You're right. No, it's sort of like saying Alexa to everybody, like saying bone with everybody's dogs watching. I apologize. But so these are animals that produce a slime for defense that is incredible. A lot of people are studying them. But you can see one of them on the lower part of the screen right now when it zooms in. They're incredibly slippery, and what they'll do, they don't have two jaws, they have the one, and they latch on, or the one mouth, they latch on, and then they tie their body into a slip knot and push their body against their head, against what it is that they're trying to eat, to hopefully hole punch their head, pulling that hole out, and then that's just the right diameter for them to swim inside. So if you watch directly below Paul right now, you'll see one of those hagfish eventually curl up into its own little knot, looking to try to pull a little bit of extra flesh off of the bone there. So that's how you're able to get inside a carcass if you don't have hands or cutlery, as it were. Okay, I think we need to go to a slightly different image.
When you come and you see the exhibit and you see bone worms on display, you will know that the lengths that we go to
absolutely
to get bone worms here.
Look at it go in its little knot. Sorry, I'm delighted by these hagfish right now.
Yeah. Emily, let's go to some of the questions that we have out there. I imagine there are quite a few.
There are quite a few questions right now. All right, let's talk about this one, because we've been mentioning quite a few animals right now, and some people have done some sleuthing, and they've heard that not all of the animals that we are mentioning right now might not be on exhibit for the next 5, 6, 7 years, that we're going to kind of rotate the animals through. So they're kind of wondering what that process is going to be like. Are we going to have an entire changeover? Or are we going to kind of change things up one animal at a time? What is the exhibit what should we expect?
Gosh, I wish I knew at this point. And that's some of the great mystery, right? Is we've got so much ahead of us. Well, we're certainly considering this. In my mind, I'm calling this like a living exhibition. If you come and visit us next month, it undoubtedly will be different if you come back in a few months or a few years, because we're just continually learning with this stuff, and we're getting access to new animals, and we're getting better at what we do, that we hope that our species list will evolve with time, such that you may see, one jelly on day one, and you come back and there's 3 different species you didn't see when you were there. So to me, and for us, that's really exciting. I think it's going to be exciting for our visitors too. Certainly we're going to have, we're not going to go through complete wholesale changes and take the exhibit down and refresh it. And there are going to be some things like the spider crabs that are likely with us from day one until day end. But some other things are going to move in and out, which again will be super fun and exciting for all of us.
That's
Absolutely.
great. Yeah, and that's one of that's one of those things where if you want to be a completionist of this particular exhibit, if you want to see all of the organisms that are going to be there, highly recommend, if you do not have one already, get yourself a membership to the aquarium. You can do that, montereybayaquarium.org. Because you get that membership, you can come in every day of the year, and you'll be able to see these things. Also, make sure that you sign up for our emails. Make sure that you follow us on social media. Just sign up for those notifications notifications so that you know when things are going to be here, because we never really know what might be available. So make sure that you are signed up. Follow us on Discord, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, YouTube, all those things. But in particular, sign up for our emails over on our website. That way you'll get the scoop and a lot of different things that's going on there too.
And over time, you'll be able to see our blank fish, our baby blank fish get older.
Yeah, our mystery jelly will be there, and we'll highlight highlight all of that it has to say. Basically, any extroverted deep sea animal that feels like joining us, the invite is out there. So anyway, that's for the folks out there who want to be completionists. So Emily, a few questions maybe from the audience, and then what I think we could do is Paul was mentioning some animals that we're likely to have over time, and I think we can go through a quick little rapid fire showing some of the photos of organisms that we have worked with in the past that we might be revisiting, or the ones that we are likely to have. We can show some of those animals now to really reward the folks who have been here with us for the last 40 minutes here. We'll get to some of those animals, but Emily, what kind of questions do the folks have out there?
I really loved this question because it kind of put a positive spin on what was a very difficult situation. Paul, would you say that the pandemic shutting the aquarium down to the public for 15 months and pushing the opening date of this exhibit back helped in the production of the exhibit, making it the incredible exhibit that it is going to be now?
No.
There it is.
How's that for positive?
There you go. Yeah. We appreciate the framing of the question, but
yeah. Well, and sure. I mean, we always like to take as much time as we possibly can. I mean, you give us years to work on something and we'll keep working on it for years. But the pandemic, I mean, just like with everything else on the planet, really threw curveballs. And you talk about us getting access to the deep sea and our partnership with Embari and going out on vessels and getting to the deep. A lot of that got put on the back burner because we, of course, didn't want to put a bunch of people in small confines on a ship at sea for multiple days. And so a lot of the time that we planned on spending out in the deep was put on hold during the pandemic. So although on the surface it seems like, oh, we got extra time, really in some ways we were kind of twiddling our thumbs during that time, and it was a bit frustrating. So sorry I know you're trying to pull something good out of the pandemic there, but
no,
that wasn't it.
No, but I think it's very important. I think it's very important for folks out there to know that your support of the aquarium through our closure really mattered, not only for this exhibit to be able to be live in front of all of you, but for the aquarium to continue. We rely on visitation for our funding, and when that went to zero, so many of you folks out there stepped up, donated, and even if you weren't donating financially, just keeping the aquarium alive through sharing our social media, joining our member live events, just whatever it was to kind of keep us rolling. Because now, while things are certainly far from normal and will continue to be altered for the foreseeable future with that reality, I think it's really important to just give, if you haven't given yourself a shout out for the folks that are watching right there, give yourselves a big hand for not only being here and watching this live stream, enjoying, we love sharing this with you. So it's great to see that you folks are enjoying it out there, but your support really made the difference, got us through the most difficult patch in the aquarium's history. And it's really pretty special to be able to get through that and then have this brand new exhibit and more life from the ocean, continuing our mission through it all. So shout out to everybody out there who is supporting us, who has been a part of that journey. And in particular, you folks may have been connected to what Emily and I have been doing online, but really the crew that was down there in the exhibit hall, in the building, make sure everything was clean, folks in control, animal care, the security staff, guest experience. I mean, just everybody, not only the folks who were connecting with you all remotely, but the folks that kept that building running the whole time. Really quite the testament. So thank you for bringing that up, dear questioner out there.
Yeah, I mean, another interesting challenge for us too was that we're not only displaying animals from Monterey Bay, and so we're working with partners around the globe to help us get animals here. And so, obviously a lot of flights were impacted during the pandemic. Cargo flights were canceled, and it was very difficult to get things on planes. So some of our animals had to stay in their country of origin longer than we would have planned, because some of them come over here on big airplanes.
Yeah.
No spoiler.
Yeah, no spoiler. Emily,
Patrick.
I don't know if there are any pressing questions that we need to get to right away, but I was thinking we might show some of those animals. But what do you think? What do the folks want to know?
Well, we did have one that was very important.
Okay.
Paul, in all this R&D that's been going on the last quite a few years for this exhibit, what was your most exciting, or the team's most, in your opinion, exciting discovery?
Oh, you're asking me to pick the favorite child, aren't you?
I am.
We can welcome you back. You're non-committal to this one as long as you return. Yeah.
Well, I think if you asked, every aquarist that's working on this exhibition that question, you'd get different answers probably likely from each of them, because they've all just really invested themselves really intensely in the things that they're working on, and that to me has actually been the most exciting thing, is just to see our team just get so jazzed and just get so motivated about this new collection and trying to learn. I have a soft spot for corals, I guess, for a soft spot for soft corals. And I'm particularly excited to bring some deep sea coral community animals to display here. So that's another exhibit that's already just looking spectacular and otherworldly. So understanding kind of how a deep sea coral is different from a shallow water coral. There's so many things that are similar, and yet there's so many things that are just radically, vastly different, and trying to understand how these animals function differently than their cousins has been a real mind scramble, but a fun one to unravel for sure.
We had actually quite a few questions about corals over on the Discord chat, Paul. So we might have to invite you back to have a coral deep dive with you and answer all those questions.
All day. Yeah.
Those gorgonians are gorgeous. Of
nice.
Course. Yeah. I tried. Yeah. Make sure you stay hydrated. They're like anyway. Right. We'll try something else. That wasn't as good. Mystery shot you don't take. So with that, Paul, I wanted to share, just run through some of the animals that we're allowed to share right now. Some of the folks, I feel like this is important because they're going to watch this later. I know they couldn't watch the entire stream, but a shout out to Northwest Fish Keeping that's over there on Discord for really being a sleuth extraordinaire, a Sherlock Holmes, trying to put all the pieces together, finding the different animals. We are going to be putting out more and more information about what we have. But just yesterday, we posted on our social media a photo of this next critter, the seafloor Roomba, as some folks have described. I think some folks being myself. Paul, I'm going to put you picture in picture right now with a delightful giant isopod. We can certainly reveal that these will be a part of the exhibit in some capacity. Maybe we won't mention exactly what's going on, but we do have these animals. Folks will get to see them. What can you tell us about these little gigantic pill bugs of the seafloor?
Patrick, this has, in my experience, been one of the most polarizing animals I've ever worked with, right? So either people see them and they go, "Oh, it's so cute, I love it," or people literally will excuse themselves from the room in which they're in and walk the other direction. So yeah, if you've ever dug around in your garden and found a pill bug or potato bug or whatever it is, imagine that thing blown up to the size of a football, and that's pretty much what you got here with the deep sea isopod. There are dozens of species of these deep sea isopods across the oceans. This is the biggest that we know of, although there's lots of stuff we don't know yet. And these things, the little that we know of them, well, we know they're scavengers, right? They'll come out and they'll consume anything they can to a certain extent, a little bit like a hagfish, right? Ring the dinner bell and they'll come out, including on whale fall habitats, and they'll scour all that meat off of there. But at least what we've seen of them in captivity in public aquariums is that they can go for months on end without consuming anything.
Wow.
Even years. There have been some in public aquarium habitats that have gone years without consuming a single piece of food, and yet they're still doing their thing.
Wow.
And so that just kind of shows you, it gives you a peek into the life of a deep sea animal where you don't have access to the same food source every single day regularly that you just need to go out and grab and gobble down. They're waiting for giant carcasses to float down from the bottom and to find them, as Patrick said, in the biggest habitat on the planet. So it requires some patience for sure. But they're pretty spectacular. And yes, I think we've got something special planned for you where it comes to deep sea isopods, but I'll zip my mouth before Patrick mutes me.
No, folks will find out more about. Yeah. So I'm just, I happen to have the YouTube chat here in front of me, and there's a lot of "let's go," and then this is the moment we've all been waiting for, and now that it's here, I honestly don't know how to feel. So I think this reveal here, Paul, is already quite wonderful. I'm gonna put the crab back up real quick just to let folks know that yes, we're gonna have these large spider crabs. We won't describe too much of what's in the background, but this is going to be one of the larger enclosures there. Is there anything else we want to talk about with the crabs before we move on to another?
Well, I think this is an interesting origin story, right? You think about how does a giant crab like this get from the deep sea of Japan all the way here to Monterey. This is not a species that is local to our environments here. So it's had to come on one of those cargo planes all the way across the ocean. But it does bring up the idea, the discussion about fisheries in the deep. These crabs typically come out of deep sea fisheries in Suruga Bay and other areas surrounding Japan. And that's a food fishery, of course. It's a food fishery that has a lot of bycatch. Certainly giant Japanese spider crabs are harvested for the seafood market as well. And just like any of the fisheries across the planet, there are a lot of problems and a lot of overfishing, and we're putting a tremendous amount of pressure on the deep, on an environment that we really have no idea what's going on down there. Yeah. And we're putting incredible pressure on it. So this animal has an interesting story in that it got on a 747 or 777 or whatever it might have been and flew across the Pacific. But it came out of a fishery that likely has a pretty significant impact on what's going on down there.
There you go. Well, I'll transition us over to this particular critter. Is very quick. This is going to be an abstract photo of a basket star is on there. And actually, what you were mentioning there, Paul, about the impact that happens in the deep sea. One of the things that you folks out there, if you're signing up for our memberships, you'll get emails from that. And then also if you're signing up to our social media, if you're on Discord, we're going to start talking a lot more this year about deep sea mining and other effects that are happening. You've probably seen a few different op-eds that we've already put out there. Our director, Julie Packard, that was the weirdest way to pronounce that I've ever done because I said director and Julie all together. Our director, Julie Packard, put out an op-ed with a bunch of different researchers and scientists around the area a few years ago about deep sea mining. It's something we're very concerned about. Obviously, exploring the deep sea in our backyard and thinking about what would happen if that was mined without knowing the impacts. Again, a lot of these things are out of sight, out of mind. We've learned a lot about microplastics, shipping containers, various forms of pollution that happen in the deep sea that we don't really know. So let alone we don't see these animals, we also maybe don't see our impact. So stay tuned to our social media channels, to when you visit the aquarium, talk to the staff. We're going to be talking a little bit more about deep sea mining and other impacts, because not only is it an undiscovered ocean, it is something that is not unaffected by what it is that we're already doing. So something to keep in mind. But with that, Paul, I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add about our basket star friend here.
Just that I think if you haven't seen a basket star, I think when you come and see it, you'll probably pretty immediately go, oh, sea star. And yet not. And I think that's, again, kind of emblematic of the deep, right? You see a lot of things and forms and animals that you kind of recognize and yet are so completely different than the stuff on the surface. These are just like the sea star on an embroidered sea star almost to me, just so intricate and ornate and feathery and beautiful. And certainly another favorite of mine. You did mention Julie, though, a second ago,
Yes.
Patrick. Patrick and Emily, you know that Julie has a coral named after her, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Julie Packard herself has, in the scientific name, she has a deep sea soft coral named after her. And of course, it is in the exhibition already. So you'll have to come find that.
Let's go. That's awesome. Yeah. Shout out to Julie for getting that, and especially being a coral. That's
yes, and a deep one.
Yeah. Okay, Paul, another image that I just want to put up, and then we'll get to some audience questions. I'm looking at 5 minutes left here on the stream. We can keep going a little bit if you happen to be available, but I'm just going to put up here these photos of some assorted hydromedusae, some assorted deep sea jellies. Now, these are animals that we worked with several years ago, so we're not going to expect these to be on exhibit. But can you tell us a little bit about the gelatinous life that we're likely to see on exhibit? We talked about the bloody belly comb jelly already, but so many gelatinous animals are out there, and we don't want to overrepresent things that have hard bodies that survive a trip to the surface in a fishing net or in a crab pot, because there's a lot of delicacies out there that are not the crabs being consumed or the other things in the fishery.
That is true. And as you point out, Patrick, we're going to take our visitors into the midwater for a large portion of their exploration of the deep, and it's a fascinating environment. I mean, I think that the deep sea has a reputation for being empty or desert-like out there and voluminous, but my gosh, it is so populated with these little gelatinous planktonic critters throughout the water column. Just a really rich diversity, again, of a lot of stuff that has not even been described scientifically to it. So we actually have gelatinous animals in our collection right now that will probably show up on display that, again, don't have a scientific name. They're barely known to science. And you're going to get to come see them here. So we've applied, again, this like 30 years of jelly husbandry know-how that our institution has, and we've been able to apply it to similar and yet very different organisms. And we're just really excited to kind of crack that next barrier a little bit. Here's another animal in this picture, though, that Patrick's got that's got a lot of red to it. Mm-hmm. And we're going to be telling that story. You'll actually be able to visualize what it's like looking at an animal from the surface and an animal, again, down in the deep, which is a really spectacular story. So you'll get to see it soon.
That's so exciting. Okay, I'm going to transition the three of us back up on screen with our animated background because I'm looking at the time, 1:57. We don't want to keep anybody too much longer than they need to be. We have so many more things to talk about. So consider this just a first little taste of what it takes to start this exhibit, what it takes to show you folks out there what is just a feature of our planet that goes completely unknown to most of us in our lives, and we're so excited to be able to show it with you all. But I can see Emily has a sly little smirk over there, thinking about what we tend to run our esteemed guests through towards the end of these live streams. Emily, I know there's a lot of questions out there. We can get to some larger ones if we need to. But Paul, we typically go through a rapid fire little round at the end there of just some high order questions. We can answer just super short. So if you're ready, we might go through some rapid fire questions here. Emily, how are you feeling over there? How are the folks doing?
To be fair, Patrick, a lot of these questions are not going to be rapid fire questions.
All right. Well, Paul, if you got to go, let us know, but we can keep you a little bit longer.
I don't. I'm really bad at being brief anyways.
Okay.
My smirk was also in relation to the delightful conversation that is happening in our Into the Deep channel on Discord right now, where the art that people have already drawn of what they think balloon worms should be are going to be, it warms my heart. They're so good.
Can't wait to see it.
It's amazing. So we'll be in there later checking those out. But
I can potentially put one up on screen here in a little bit if we'd like.
Let's
Yes,
grab
yes, we
some of
would.
these questions in here and trying to get some more done. Paul, how about this one? What's been your favorite part about making the exhibit?
I hinted at it before, but I think it's giving our team the opportunity really to work with this new, really exciting habitat, this group of animals. We have such a spectacular team all across the board here, and to just get everybody aligned and fired up about this new thing and see their own individual passions displayed. That to me is the best. To walk down into the gallery right now and talk to them about what they're working on. It's remarkable.
Awesome. Kind of along the same lines, we've been talking about some of the species that we're going to have in here, but Paul, are there any animals, any deep sea animals out there that we're not going to have right now, but maybe it's a dream for you that hopefully someday we will be able to have?
Am I supposed to answer this shortly? Because I'm really bad at
it. You can take as
well,
long as
I
you
got
want,
nowhere
Paul.
else to be,
Yeah.
man.
I have
I'm
like
having a great time.
multi-part answers to everything. I realize. Yeah. I mean, the answer certainly is yes, but I'll start with. A lot of us have seen some of the spectacular video footage that Embari produces that we put up on our socials as well, of things like the barrel eye fish and the vampire squid and the angler fish and whatnot. And I think that's a lot of the animals that people think of when they think of the deep. And although those animals are not rare, at least that we don't believe that they're rare, we still come across them very infrequently. Again, Patrick talked about how much volume is out there. And you think about trying to find like a 3 or 4 inch long fish swimming around out in the deep sea. It is the definition of needle in a haystack. So we simply don't have regular access to a lot of that stuff. I think, what was it? The last barrel eye video we showed was like the 9th one of those that's ever been seen.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's absurd. And we've spent thousands of hours in Monterey Bay and in the canyon driving ROVs around, right? They're out there. They're not rare. We're just not finding them. So, so those are species that would be fantastic to work with one day. And yet we don't know. Are we going to be able to come across them? Or are we going to be able to bring them up in an ROV carefully and do what we need for them? Sure, pipe dream kind of stuff. But we're going to keep working on it. One little nerdy one that I've talked about before that I like is there's this sea urchin that lives way the heck down. That's called Echinocrepus, a great genus.
Sounds sus. Yeah.
And imagine a sea urchin except in the shape of a pyramid of Giza, right? And that thing that thing just cruises around on the bottom of the seafloor. It's super neat and super alien looking. And currently, it's super hard for us to get to them because, again, they're way the heck down there. And 2, so far, they just don't like coming up to the surface. So maybe we can figure them out a little bit over the years and understand what makes them tick so that we can better care for them. But for right now, it's a bit of a pipe dream.
That's tremendous. Okay. Speaking of pipe dream, this is a good transition real quick. There are a lot of incredible guesses as to what these balloon worms look like over on Discord, as Emily was mentioning. Some of them are incredibly scientific. Others are very silly. And in particular, I just wanted to share this one from Olympic Josh. Thank you, Olympic Josh, for this one. It is absolutely hilarious. Paul, how do you rate this one? How do you score Olympic Josh's balloon worm theory? For those of you who are just joining the live stream, we talked about balloon worms. We'll reveal that on our next live stream of what they actually look like. What are we scoring? What do the judges say here?
Well, I like that it's honing in on the simplicity of life. Perhaps it's not going to be my next tattoo design, maybe, but yeah.
Thank you, Olympic Josh, over on Discord. Yeah, that was delightful.
It does have eyes. I like that it has 2 eyes, or at least we know which the head is.
Yeah, I will say that. With these, with these, y'all are winners. You came to the live stream and you submitted your worm photos, as they say, veni vidi vermi in that particular set of circumstances here. Okay, you're welcome. I had to get a groan out of Paul at some point in the stream. Okay, Emily.
Yes.
We got a few more questions. Paul, you good on time?
I'm good.
Okay.
Good.
All right.
All right.
What else?
Let me grab. I was gonna go into our normal ending question, but I'm gonna grab another one. Let's see here. Ooh, how about this one? Have there been any cool discoveries as far as like scientific discoveries that we've made since we've started doing R&D for the exhibit? New species, new behaviors, things like that.
I'm worried I'm gonna potentially reveal something. I mean, this is like fresh.
What?
No need.
Well, this is like fresh off the presses,
Okay.
and this is unconfirmed yet.
Okay.
But something that, I mean, today
Okay.
we were talking about. How's that for a setup?
That's
There
a
you
hot
go.
take, fresh
Yeah.
from the deep. Let's go.
Okay. All right. We're not talking about much about bioluminescence here today, but
Right.
of course it's a story we're going to tell. Okay. But I'll say this. We've been getting some count my words. We've been getting some great video footage of bioluminescence.
Okay.
Mhm.
It's possible. It's not confirmed yet. Again, it's fresh off the presses that we've gotten a new color of bioluminescence on film.
Oh.
If
That's a
true,
big one.
if true, that's
If
Big
true.
drop there.
Big if true. All right.
because we know the
Yeah.
basic colors that happen in bioluminescence.
Mhm.
And there are some that just don't show up at all or often. It's possible we found something else.
That is an exclusive. So we will be
Come
following
back for
up.
more.
We'll be
Yeah.
exactly. Hey,
Stay tuned.
gotta subscribe, get that membership. You'll find out for everybody else. 2 threads then to tie up in the rest of these live streams. What the balloon worm reveal, you'll be able to look forward to that on the next stream.
Mhm.
And then following up on bioluminescence. Yes, not talking about bioluminescence much on this particular stream, folks, because we have a special member preview that will be coming out later. And we'll be talking a little bit more about some other aspects of the deep around then, and bioluminescence will be a feature. So another reason to maybe sign up for that membership to find out a little bit ahead of everybody else. Emily, are
Yes.
there other questions that we must get to now?
I think the very important one that we should talk about right now, Paul, is how does someone get a job like yours? If you could talk to yourself at 16 years old, what kind of advice would you give them?
I would tell me to do just what I did.
Yeah.
No, it's a good question. I think the majority of folks that at least work in my end of the aquarium went to school for some sort of biological sciences, but not all. We've had folks that got psychology degrees or history degrees or something like that. I think working in an aquarium is a renaissance job entirely. I mean, we've got artists and engineers and plumbers and electricians and biologists and everything in between that I think almost for like whatever interest you might have, there's kind of an application for it in a public aquarium. So you don't have to just work with the animals necessarily to be engaged in kind of our mission and telling our stories. You know, you look at Patrick and Emily here who aren't handling Echinocrepus every day, and
Not
yet
that you know.
well, yeah, that's
I've got
the
some
next
secrets too.
that's the next cast. But they're the ones that are getting our stories out there and telling them in great ways and giving it all visibility, you know. So that's just my soapbox of like, I think you can do anything and still work in a public aquarium. And if you want to work with critters in a public aquarium, I'd say get out there, get in the water where you can. Learn about biology, get in the field, go tide pooling, go snorkeling, follow that path. A lot of us, most of us, myself included, started by volunteering at a public aquarium. And I did that a long time ago. And the rest is not unfinished history, I guess, but
no,
yeah.
the rest is making history, as it were, with
nice.
this exhibit, right?
Nice.
With everything that's coming out there. Yeah, we found it.
Nice.
Okay, Well, with that, we've been running the stream for a little bit. I want to make sure that we are mindful of everybody's time. And also, I feel like the longer we're talking to you, Paul, the more likely we're going to get in danger with the particular list of things not to mention because it is so exciting.
I'm dying.
Yeah. No, the folks out there being like, oh, I hate it when they tease us. Like, we hate to tease you as well. We cannot wait to show you what we have been working on. Again, an incredible amount of support the incredible support that you were able to give us during our closure is what has gotten us through this. And just a huge shout out to the entire team down in the building that kept the aquarium running. And thank you to you, Paul, to your crew, to everybody that supports the animal care and the husbandry operations of the aquarium. Just really incredible. Great job already. I know things are difficult ahead, stressful for sure, as it always is before things launch. But thank you so much. Folks, if you could please in the chat, if you could give some GGs over on Twitch or some W's for win for the folks if you're not familiar with chat nomenclature, or just say thank you to Paul over there in the chat so he'll be able to see that. We'll have that record. Paul, do you have any closing thoughts for us before the exhibit opens?
Yeah, I'll give a thanks back, of course. Patrick and Emily turned me on to the Discord chat this week, and it was spectacular. And just really appreciate, again, as you said, everybody's support, and for y'all listening out there. You're like the marine snow to our midwater jelly. I think out there.
Nice.
So you guys keep us fueled for sure. Thank you.
Less icky overall, but yeah.
I will say that over on Twitch, one of our followers, Slay Sammy Slay, did have the best comparison. Maybe Discord, it might be more like a whale fall. If falling detritus is our marine snow and the trickle there, the whale fall is like a marine cloudy with a chance of meatballs, or it's just this immense love and the Sherlock sleuthing that's going on, and it gives us so much joy to see it.
Yeah, we cannot wait to reveal the full exhibit to all of you. So if you'd like to stay in contact with what's happening and just know things before everybody else, again, make sure that you're following us on these social media platforms. Make sure that you sign up for our emails over on our website. Again, if you get that membership, you will get not only exclusive information ahead of time, you'll also get a preview. You get to see it before everybody else. And you can follow us on Discord. We've got links in the description on YouTube. You can also find that on our website. Scroll down to the bottom. So sign up for those emails. Sign up for the membership if you'd like to support the aquarium and see things ahead of time. And just generally, thank you, everyone, for being here for this first exhibit preview. Stay tuned. There will be many more about the deep sea. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Emily. I will transition us now over to our closing slide. Hopefully everything works over there, and we hope to deep see you again very, very soon here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.